Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You know, a lot of the time they say that the best comedy comes from the biggest tragedies, and in many ways, your life could be considered by some as being a rolling series of tragedies that you've turned into comedy and you've turned into success. A little bit of your story would shock most people out there. You are someone who came to America as a refugee.
Correct.
From Kuwait, correct?
I was born in Kuwait.
Right.
I left Kuwait after the first Gulf War.
Right.
Which I like to call the prequel. I went to a really nice private British English school in Kuwait, and then we migrated to Houston, Texas. And
That's a culture shock.
It's a culture shock, and they put me in ESL class, which is English as a second language class, and I was the only guy that spoke English in the class. I walk in, all the kids are like, "Hola, tú eres de nuevo aquí?" I'm like, I had a hint of a British accent. I'm like, "Sorry, what language are you speaking?" All of a sudden, this other dude just rolls up out of nowhere. He's like, "You're weird, dude. Why do you talk like that, eh?" And that was my teacher. You know, it was a very weird situation.
This is like, here's the thing. A lot of the time when we have these conversations in America about like immigrant, refugee, etc., it's always like a sad story. It's always like, these people who need this place as refuge. But you really have an interesting story about how your mom was the driving force behind getting your family to the US and starting up a new life. Just from your perspective, like, how would you try to explain to somebody what it is like to be a refugee and how hard it is to come into the United States?
It's really difficult to explain or put into words the excruciating process of getting your citizenship.
Right.
It took me 20 years.
Wow.
To get my citizenship. I traveled all over the world doing stand-up comedy without a passport.
Wait, how do you travel without a passport?
They give you a United States travel document that is only good for like a year, and then you have to, most countries need more of a year validity on your passport to even enter the country.
Right.
It's incredibly complicated. In most cases, I'm not even allowed to go, but I just would go and see what would happen anyway. I would get questioned in a lot of different countries. So
let me understand this.
Yeah.
You are a Palestinian, Kuwaiti, Muslim traveling the world with no passport, and you were like, I want to try to do this in more countries.
Yeah. Well, the thing, I'm born to Palestinian
How many
parents.
times did you get? How many times did you get stopped? Like, how many times were you?
Every time. No, it was every time. To the point to when I became a citizen and I was re-entering America, and he was like, "Okay, go ahead." And I was like, "No, are you sure? I think there's another." There's something else that needs to happen here. I feel awkward. Can we just talk for a little while?
Right.
I'm serious, it did. I was like, what's going on? I was like, no, we need to chat a little bit. Like, Japan was my favorite interrogation I ever had. It was just an hour of them trying to figure out what I did for a living. The entire hour, for real, consisted of, so what is your occupation? I was like, oh, I'm a comedian. He's like, comedian? I'm like, yeah, I do stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy? I'm like, yeah, I do comedy. Comedy? Yeah, I'm a comedian. Comedian. I'm like, am I being roasted right now? What's happening? Finally, his buddy walks in, his partner. He's like, how does that comedian? And he goes, oh, yeah, he's like a Bill Cosby. And that's what got me off, was Bill Cosby. I mean, not literally. I figured that's what got.
So now, you have this really interesting journey. Growing up in America, it takes 20 years to become a resident. Citizen, right? And here's the thing that I've always wondered from your perspective. Do you ever find yourself in a space where, because you speak about things that are happening in the US, people are like, hey, you should just be grateful to be in the US. Don't talk about anything that might be going wrong in the US because the US has welcomed you in.
Yeah, nah. I mean, look, as an Arab American, Muslim, Palestinian on top of it, someone who's fled war. I was 9 years old, so I didn't really know much. It's not like, hey, Mom, are you sure about Houston? You just had to go, you know what I mean? And I'm very proud Houstonian, and I grew up in Alief, which is a really multicultural neighborhood. But the thing is that growing up that way, I was always, told to not talk about politics, not say anything because they're going to send us back.
Wow.
That was the whole thing. Shh, don't say anything. They're gonna send you back. You know, make sure you don't talk about. I was like, you know, all this stuff that's been festering inside for so many years. That's why when I started stand-up comedy, it was the perfect outlet for me to allow me to express everything that was happening to me, and also, you know, releasing the special and seeing the reaction from so many different people that can relate to the same story, that are refugees, that went through a similar process,
Right.
that are, you know, dealing with the immigration system right now. They talk about extreme vetting. I mean, my God, it took us 20 years. How much more extreme could it be?
Well, you wanted to take forever.
Yeah, that's the point. And so it's very, very frustrating. But at this point in time, I'm an American citizen. So in your face, bitch, I say whatever I want. You become really confident once you get that passport. Once I have the passport, like, what you gonna do now?
They can take it away from you.
Can they? Oh, shit.
That was one of the things that, like, you know, people were talking about with Trump. They said, like, oh, you never know what he's gonna do. You never know. You know, Trump was floating ideas of, like, our citizenship's real. Have people lied about things, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people who are refugees or maybe came to the U.S. as immigrants had this connection with Trump where they were worried. You had a different connection with Trump, which is one of the reasons you came into prominence. Really insane story, right, where you found yourself on a plane seated next to Eric Trump.
That's, yeah. You know, being a frequent flyer helps sometimes. I didn't know this was gonna happen. Like, I was upgrading to first class.
Right.
And I ended up sitting next to Eric Trump. I didn't even know I was gonna get upgraded because I put my name on the list way too late. You know, comedians are, you know, the best procrastinators in the business.
Yep.
And I didn't know I was gonna get upgraded, much less sit next to Eric, but I do know one thing, the lady that upgraded me is probably a Clinton supporter, you know, let's be real. She was probably sitting there like, oh, Eric Trump is on my flight, okay, I don't know why she has a mustache, but okay, Oh, there's an empty seat next to Eric. Let me take a look at this upgrade list, see who's standing by patiently here. Oh, Mohammed Mustafa Amer, upgrade.
Oh, dude. Can I tell you, man, I've seen your stand-up on the road. You were amazing opening for Dave Chappelle. The special is truly phenomenal. I tell everyone to go out and watch it. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for
I hope to see you again. The Vagabond is currently available on Netflix. Please go and watch it. Mo Amer, everybody.